Hi there, welcome to video number 9 in the sequence, looking at the black square king air using axes and O's, and this time it's really concentrating on the throttle quadrant. A little bit of use of the honeycomb yoke as well, but it's mostly looking at the throttle quadrant for this one. So let's sort of talk through what the allocations that I've made. So down here on the throttle quadrant in the actual sim itself, obviously we've got the trim wheel. So if you want to use the manual trim wheel on the quadrant, let's bring in my axes and O's. Other aircraft using the trim wheel, it's really not well calibrated. You have to turn the wheel massive amounts to make things work. This one's really nicely calibrated. So there is a B variable that's allocated. This one here is kind of acts as a button that's being pressed frequently, is the way this one works. So it's a B variable handling the elevator trim, and this is the decrease version, so a part of it. So if you're pushing the trim wheel that way, you decrease the trim. It detects it as soon as you turn it, and it detects it's button 21 that's being pressed constantly. If I move it backwards, you see it detects button 2, but I want 22, but I want it to be 21, so I just roll the trim wheel in the right direction, and that seems to be quite well balanced in terms of calibration. And obviously it's the opposite for moving it backwards, so you're using a different variable, but it's nicely balanced. As far as this allocation is concerned, the electric trim there, that's already on my the honeycomb yoke, and I'm just using the default options that come in the control options. So where alpha flight controls, I'm just using the default ones that come with that. I haven't changed that at all on the alpha. So that is the trim up there, and there's also a rudder trim on there which lines up quite nicely with the rudder trim that's on there. So those trims I'm leaving in the default profile there. And as far as this is concerned, I'm also leaving the landing gear up and down. Why change it? That's all it does. And the flap lever works absolutely fine. It moves it into the different positions, so there's no point reprogramming that. And also leaving all of the autopilot settings and the altitude bugs, that kind of stuff, that all works absolutely fine as it comes out of the box, and controls the autopilot that's built into the throttle quadrants. So I'm leaving those exactly as they are. Let's get back into it. So flap lever is dealt with, that the electric trim, that rudder trim is dealt with. I haven't done anything about the aileron trim at the moment. I've run out of rotary space on my X-Touch, which would be the only other place I could put a rotary. So I'm leaving it as is at the moment. So the main bit of work is looking at these levers and the axes for these. Again, if I bring up axes and O's for this. Let's start on the throttle side of things. Allocating this relatively easy. If I was going to start from scratch, we've got the throttle we can pick from here. Throttle 1, throttle 2, so we allocate them from there. Move the appropriate lever, and it detects it, and that's how it's added in. But I did find that I needed to change the response of the curve. If I put this back to the center, where it would be by default, if I move this now, this is showing us sort of how far I've moved, actually physically moved the throttle. And what happens is that as particularly I don't like it when I'm taking the power off. If you watch the left-hand throttle here, it very quickly gets into the area here where you're going to start reversing the engines. And so you're doing that in flight, you're trying to take some power off. If you put it too far, which is very easy to do, you end up in the reverse section. Whereas you look at this lever here, I've moved them physically the same amount. You can see the marker is in the same place, but I haven't got anywhere near the sort of danger area until I get right down towards the bottom. So I've got much more movement available to me on the physical lever before I get down to reversing the engines, and that's controlled by moving this marker. So I put those two at the same point roughly, and as I move them, particularly as I come down, I can move my throttle. You can see here how far I'm moving it physically, how far through the axes I'm moving it, and it's not till we get to about three quarters down that I start to get below the idling and into reversing. So easy to allocate, but play with the curve, make it feel comfortable for you. The propeller one, again, the propellers are quite simple and they're just allocated up here. You just drop that down, find them. And I haven't actually changed the curves at all for this one. They feel quite natural moving through. It does feather when you go into here. You don't have to choose a variable to tell it to feather. It detects automatically you're in the feather zone, and it feathers the blades quite happily. So that one's nice and easy. And then we've got the condition lever here, and that's here. The fuel condition lever. First, let's look at the movement of it. If you watch the curve, I'll put it fully upwards. You need to reverse the axes anyway, but as I start to move it down through the range, you can see it's moving, and then it will leap from the high idle to the low idle. So it's automatically sort of gated. It's got a detent in it. And then if I keep going down below that, you see I'm almost here. I'm almost at the end of the range of the movement, and nothing's happened. In fact, I'm now at the very end, nothing's happened. On the actual physical quadrant, we've hit the end of the range, we're hitting a gate. If I push it beyond that gate, now you can see it's gone into cutoff. What's actually happening is, it's reached the end of the axis range, where the potentiometer works. And as you push it down, it hits a switch, which will switch it into cutoff mode. Allocating them it took me a while to work out how to do this, but as far as the axis is concerned, if we're going to put another one in, you won't find it here on these axes here. You won't find a condition lever here. You need to select an event, and as soon as you click on here, you'll be going through the events, and you can filter for fuel and that sort of stuff. But if I show you what is actually allocated on that, you'll see it is allocated an event, the fuel condition lever 1 or fuel condition lever 2, depending which lever you're doing. So that's what makes that work. Reverse the axes and that works. So what about the condition going into cutoff now? So if I move that down, push it into the cutoff position, it's treating it here like a key, an event here. It's essentially working as a button. So what we're looking at here is having a key down and key up event. When we press it into the down part, we want to have this B variable, fuel condition lever toggle. We want that to be sending a 2 to it, and when you move it up out and the key button comes up, we're sending to the same variable but we're sending a 1 this time. Okay, so that's, and it detects, as soon as you push it into position, it detects with the right button and you're on the throttle quadrant, and it's button 27 when you push it to the end of that range. And if we do the other one, you'll see it detects button 32, and this is for the fuel condition 2 lever toggle. Okay, and you can pick those up again, going in here and looking for the B variable, and that just seems to work. Okay, and I think that's it. I think we've covered everything here that's on the that throttle quadrant there. I'll see you in the next video.